Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Patterson and Michael Remis.
Hey now, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Your host today, me, Michael Remis, filling in for Hustler on his way to Montreal for the President's Cup. Hustler, he's been pumped for this tournament for a long time. Got a new phone, came over last night. I showed him how to use, how to use the microphone. We might be creating some video content and maybe even hop on the next couple days. Stay tuned to Hustlerama on X feed, and maybe I'll repost some of it on our socials as well. Sports Talk WPG on everything. You can see what Hustler is up to. But hey, I'm here. About to be joined in a second by Connor Hrabchak. Fantastic number of guests on the show. Scott Cullen, McKeen's Hockey, Darrin Bauming, Bonfire Sports. Get into the Bombers. Murat of the Athletics. So many Jets topics. And new Winnipeg Blues head coach, Josh Gratton. He's a former 17-year hockey pro, NHL, AHL. Their home opener tonight at Hockey for All Center. So stay tuned. Interesting conversation. Josh Gratton, he's seen a lot in his pro hockey career. Just wanted to thank our sponsors for their support that make the show happen. Raleigh's Transferred, Consolidated Supply, Manitoba Battery, Princess Auto, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Winnipeg Jets. Watch out for the WST ticket pack or ticket WST Nights Out at Canada Life Center coming up. We're still waiting to announce that. It is coming. People are asking. And Garage Living Winnipeg sponsors CFL 110. Normally on Wednesdays, we do raid Hustler and Jeff. They do CFL 110, but we did do that earlier this week. So subscribe to CFL 110 on that podcast feed. It is on the Winnipeg Sports Talk podcast feed for now. And on YouTube, check that out. Some great CFL discussion as we're in the final weeks of the year. And of course, Coolbet. And shout out to everyone last night who took part in the second tournament of the Lock Shop Poker Series. Everyone knows that I finished second in the tournament last month. Last night didn't go as well. A lot of pressure on me with the bounty. I only finished 30-something. I was low on chips, went all in. I'm sure everyone wants to hear my poker bad beat story. Everyone loves hearing poker bad beat stories. But I went all in ace-10 suited. A guy called me with 10-9 and flopped 2 9s. Oh, well, I'm out. I got to go to bed early this time and get ready for this show. Hustler did finish in the money. Good for him. I think he was the highest finisher in Winnipeg Sports Talk, Edmonton Sports Talk. Randy D, who's in the chat all the time, he finished 10th. And I know Eagle Eyes was in here yesterday. He was the chip leader when I went to bed. I did watch it all. Dustin Nielsen streamed it on the Edmonton Sports Talk YouTube channel. That was pretty fun watching poker. Shout out to Dusty. I know he's got CFL play-by-play under control on TSN, but he could do poker play-by-play as well. But we do have the Jets Oilers preseason game tonight. We're going to get into the lineup. The Bombers getting ready for Edmonton as well. Edmonton and CFL and the NHL season just around the corner. Let's bring in Connor Hrabchak wearing the 49ers shirt. Connor, what's going on? How's it going today?
Doing well. I'm excited. I know we talked last time about how we were pleasantly surprised about the lineup, and then the Jets lost 5-2. But you're seeing a lot of the veterans and a lot more structure of what you'll see opening night for the Winnipeg Jets tonight. So I'm excited to have some preseason hockey with a lot of the key Winnipeg Jets in the lineup. Sure,
and we do have a game. There is another game tonight. I'll go over the lines right away. Connor, Scheifele, Velarde. We've seen this line before. Nemesnikov, Lambert, Ehlers. Niederreiter, Lowry, and Jad. Get ready. It's no longer AJF. There's now a Jad, Jared Anderson Dolan, newly acquired this offseason. Didn't have quite enough room there. for it all. David Gustafsson, Rasmus Kupari, and Parker Ford, the darling of the preseason last year, the breakout preseason performer. Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, Stanley, Miller, and Capo Kakinen looking for redemption in his second start. Did not go so well for him in the first one. Connor, overall impression of the lineup for tonight?
Well, I think we need someone with a longer name than Adam Lowry so that we can have like the all shortened name line on that third line with Nino, JAD, and then someone else. But I'm not going to get into, I mean, the defense core is what you'll probably see opening night with Stanley or maybe Hayden Fleury alongside Colin Miller, but the top two pairings are pretty set in stone. I've made my thoughts pretty clear on the top line of Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, but it's clear that they're going to try it out here, at least in a preseason game. But what I'm most excited for is that second line. Seeing Brad Lambert and Nikolai Ehlers play together is something that I know a lot of Jets fans, I know a lot of people in chat have wanted to see, both electrifying, fast players who dominate in transition and could be playing together when the season begins if Brad Lambert does make the team. So I'm excited to see whether or not there's some instant chemistry there in this preseason game. But other than that, nothing really too surprising about this lineup. And obviously the goaltending, Kakinen, like you said, trying to get redemption for the rough start he had last Saturday in the ever rolling backup goaltender battle here. What impresses you, or what are you watching for with this lineup, Remo?
Yeah, I was more looking at, okay, who wasn't in the lineup tonight?
Yeah.
We saw the groups yesterday. We did see, some young players in the A group. That was Brad Lambert, who is in tonight. Jaeger, he is not in. I imagine he might get in Friday, make some of these young guys travel to Minnesota for the road game. Chibrikov, not in. Barlow was in the B group yesterday. And Elias Salamonson, he is not in this game. But it's interesting to me, they're just rocking what looks like your opening night defense here. Playing a lot of guys at home. So looking forward to seeing a nice crowd at Canada Life Center. This game will be on TV on TSN 3. We're not going to be fumbling through any streams that don't work. We're not going to have any technical issues. You're just going to turn on good old fashioned TSN, and Dan and Kevin and John Lou will be there with the call. And yeah, Capo Kakinen, he needs to have a better performance. And just touch on the visitors. I couldn't see anything totally confirmed. Jason Greger of Sports 1440, now formerly Sports 1440, he's tweeting out the lines. The guys on the ice here, I can put out these lines. I don't even know. They don't have no McDavid. They're coming tonight, expect to see McDavid, Draisaitl. They're not. Nugent Hopkins not in. Bouchard not in. These guys played a lot. They're not traveling. Victor Arvidsson, he's looking to be healthy this year. Is a nice ad for him. We got Janmark, Connor Brown, Matt Savoy, former Winnipeg Ice, Brett Kulak. So, he's got Stuart Skinner starting as well. And it is a welcome back game for Colin Delia, who was part of the Moose organization last year. So we'll see, when this is all finalized, but you're not seeing any. If you're coming to see McDavid, you're going to be disappointed. They'll save that one for the regular season, and that's kind of usually what happens when they play Edmonton. They don't send their big guns here, especially this early in the preseason. Yeah, Connor Hrabchak not getting in the first 3 games. I imagine he'll play a bit more in the final stretch here.
Yeah, in years past as well, they've given him like 2.5 games where he'll play the full amount of 1 or 2 games, and then he'll play maybe a half game. Maybe that half game is coming because there's only 3 left. And like you said, Friday in Minnesota, I would expect them to dress a very prospect-full lineup and make the young guys travel, as you said. And then they're on the road again in Calgary and at home against Calgary. I'm not sure which one comes first of the home and home there, but I usually he gets 1.5 or 2.5 games. I would expect the same. And then obviously once the season gets going, we know that he's the guy. And Kakinen and Comrie, I would assume Comrie gets another start here as well if Kakinen is getting 2 to fully flesh out that backup goaltender battle. But yeah, not expecting any high level players. This is always the preseason. You play your veterans at home. You send your young guys on the road. And usually home teams dominate the preseason, but that wasn't the case last Saturday when we looked at the Jets roster and thought, oh, this roster's enticing. And the Wild sent a pretty veteran AHL Iowa Wild-esque roster, and they still lost 5-2. So I'm expecting to see a Jets win tonight, just looking at on paper, because you show those lines, then you show the Jets lines. There's one team that's very close to their opening day roster and one team that's not.
Yeah, I do see Owen Catelli in chat asking, can I bet online on this game? And yes, Coolbet does have this on the board. The Jets heavy favorites, minus 286 if you're a big DGen and want to bet on NHL preseason. I don't know. I am going to the game. Like, do I throw in a DraftKings lineup where I take the Jets top line just to make it interesting, just for novelty purposes? I'm not sure I'm going to do that, but hey, there's a game tonight. Looking forward to it, and we are getting ready for the Bombers on Friday. Mm-hmm. And we did have a lot of Jets news, Connor. I'm sure you'll be talking about it on WST Sunday Live, our new show Sunday at 9 with you, Jacob Stahl of Sportsnet. Big shout out from Elliot Friedman to Jacob in the most recent 32 Thoughts, and Liz Hood. Cole Perfetti signed this week, 2-year contract, $3.25 million AAV. And I think the other big news yesterday was the new look power play and penalty kill. I'll start with Perfetti. Connor, what was your reaction when you saw the Perfetti signing? Not last night, but the night before.
Yeah, I think I'm with the majority of Jets fans and WST chatters, where I saw the number and thought, I would have guessed this in June. I would have guessed this right when the season ended. 2 years, 3.25, 3.5, somewhere in that range. Like, this wasn't shocking by any means. And then you have David Pagnotta on the show yesterday with Huss saying how this is a little bit lower even that he would have thought the Perfetti camp would have gotten. I remember saying on WST Sunday Live that I thought this contract stalemate was going to end with Cole Perfetti going to his agent and saying, I need to be on the ice. I can't miss another full week of camp trying to grind out every last dollar. And looking at the number 3.25, I think that is what happened. The Jets had a day off Monday. They weren't skating. They were getting on the ice Tuesday. The news broke late Monday night that they signed this contract. So obviously we'll never find out the intricacies of, who caved or things of that nature. But I do think that Cole Perfetti and his camp, 3.25, I mean, it's a little bit less than you would have thought, but I think he's going to well outplay that number over the next 2 years, and it'll be a great value for the Jets. And then we'll have this discussion even next year, like you guys said, extension eligible next offseason, but really 2 years from now, looking for that long-term deal. If he hits in the top 6, maybe on the power play this year, didn't look to be on power play 1, but maybe on power play 2 as he was last year. But yeah, a good value for these 2 years for sure. I still would have liked to see a long-term deal, which reportedly was never on the table. But I think 2 years from now, the Jets will be in a good spot, having gotten 2 years of value with Perfetti and looking to go long-term.
Yeah, the Jets are getting up against the cap, which is kind of why I'm thinking they didn't want to go long-term. If you go an extra 2, maybe $3 million, they're going to be over the cap. They'd have to make a corresponding move to move someone out, or they wouldn't be able to add anyone at the deadline. Maybe they are looking to make some moves depending on where they are in the standings. For Perfetti, first, I said this earlier this week, first 40 games last year, he had 29 points. Over an 82-game season, that's 59 points, and he's not even getting, top power play or, top minutes. He was playing lower down. If he can play like that, I think he will be able to outplay this contract and earn an even bigger one. But it was about the fall off, and sometimes, recency bias kicks in. The last 31 games, he had 9 points, and he went 23 games without a goal where he had 2 assists and was a -7. And yeah, he got sat for that and came back. I thought he came back stronger and eventually got into a playoff game in the last game. But they're going to need him to play a top 6 role. And there was some talk about him last year playing center. They used to remember he started talk, hey, who's the second line center? And he did get a crack at it for a couple games. That experiment didn't last long. Scott O'Neill was asked yesterday about that. He said they like Cole on the wing. And this is what he said as to why.
It has a little bit more to do probably without the puck coming down our end of the rink being, the hardest part for a centerman in the NHL is that you have to go from your defensive corner. You're in the battle 90% of the time. You're the low forward, and you got to get up out of the hole, and you got to get in the rush and get the other end of the rink on the offense. And you know what he showed last year playing on the wing. That I thought he was real good. He can play both left and right side. He's got real good. He was actually good on the walls. It kind of got the puck in his hands a lot because he wasn't coming out of the hole from the corners. He was actually getting the puck either first or second touch, and then now he's going through the blue line to blue line. Being able to make plays that way. So that's more of what I was kind of thinking on it.
All right, so he wants Cole on the wing for the defensive responsibilities and big opportunity for him on the second line. He's going to be getting some power play. Did not practice on the power play, the first 2 power play units yesterday, and he's not playing tonight. He will be getting into the game probably Friday, it seems. But again, huge opportunity for him to prove himself that he can, be a contributor for 82 games and play a big role on this team. And they're going to need him to score, and hopefully he can score like the way he did in the start of the season. Yesterday, the big news coming out, Connor, was changes to the power play, changes to the penalty kill. The power play looking to have more movement, had Nikolai Ehlers on there. And the penalty kill, we saw Scheifele and Connor, and maybe even Nikolai Ehlers will get some penalty kill time this year. What did you make of the changes that we saw at yesterday's practice?
Yeah, I'll start with the power play. I think there was some moments where Nikolai Ehlers, he was on the first unit the whole time, the whole practice, but there were some moments where he was on the left wall where we've typically seen him, where he drives down that wall and usually shoots and is very effective. He's done that on the second unit a lot in his career. But they started the power play practice by him being in the bumper, and him and Mark Scheifele kind of alternated out of that spot and the left wall here and there through drills, through set plays in the offensive zone. And then in the scrum later, the line of questioning to Ehlers was heavily focused on him playing the bumper and learning the bumper. And he expressed interest in watching film on players that are really good in that spot. Mentioned Sebastian Aho and Patrice Bergeron before he retired and things of that nature. So I think he's going to be in the bumper, which online yesterday, there was kind of a bit of a confusion as to whether or not Scheifele was in the bumper or he was, but I think they'll rotate healthily. And I think Ehlers being on the top power play is good for the Winnipeg Jets, regardless of where he is, just as the ability to enter the zone, which they've struggled with in years past. And the penalty kill, I do like the idea of Connor and Scheifele and even Ehlers being on that unit, using their speed. And I do see some people against it. And I think there's going to be kind of a philosophy change when those guys are on the ice, as opposed to Adam Lowry and Morgan Barron. I don't think Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor are going to be sitting back, playing super passive, dropping down to block shots, and that's how they're going to kill penalties. They're going to be super aggressive, kind of like a power kill, try and control the puck. When they do get it, I don't think they're just going to be sitting back and letting defenders shoot into their ankles and breaking their feet and things of that nature. I think they're going to be super aggressive, try and jump passing lanes. And I think that can be valuable, especially for a team like the Jets, who struggled in the penalty kill department last year, and then the power play department, they struggled as well. So I do like the changes. Change is a good thing when the special teams was as dismal as they were last year and cost them as many games as they did, even though they finished 4th in the NHL. But those have to improve this season. And I think the steps they took, Ehlers on the top unit, trying out these highly skilled fast forwards on the penalty kill, I think that'll lead to some improved results early in the season.
Yeah, power play and penalty kill both finish in the bottom third last year. And I did note that even shorthanded goals, they were dead last in the NHL. So if you can find a way, to get a little bit better, that means, preventing goals on the penalty kill, or even be able to score a couple goals. Anywhere you can squeeze more goals out of your lineup is good and will help you improve. Just on the bumper, I feel like bumper has become the hot hockey term in the last couple of years. I think my first years of watching hockey, never heard this term in my life playing hockey, but it is, for people who may not know, we don't have a visual here, it is the high slot area on the power play. Correct.
I should have. Yes, it's the high slot. I should have. Yeah, that is a good point. Bumper is not a very commonly used term. It's high slot. It's the middle. I mean, it is, but like,
coming.
What does that mean?
So
what does
much
that mean?
the last couple years, and I didn't know what it was for. Like all of a sudden, bumper is like the hot hockey term, but that's what it is now. I don't know how that started. Someone want to give me some background on that?
The origin.
We can get to that. Here is Scott Arniel after yesterday's practice on just going through special teams.
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned it that it has to be our specialty teams have to get better, and if you don't work at them, you don't go through them, you're not going to make any gains. And the biggest thing right now is we have numbers, so it allows you to have a lot of bodies, and you can keep the pace of we had 3 power play units, so it allowed us to have a really good pace during the power play. We're going to do this again in another week when we have, the numbers will be reduced maybe a little bit, but at the same time, Davis and Dean, it's the first time they're really kind of getting their message out. We just did game day meetings with the group that was playing the first 2 games. So today was the first for Perfetti, Scheifele, Lowry, all these guys, to kind of get kind of more about what Davis and Dean are thinking. They've actually met them prior to camp even starting. They've met and shown some things, but it's their verbiage is different, kind of how they kind of approach different things. Maybe some, systematic stuff is a little bit different. So today was an actual great way of the power play, going first for a half an hour, walk through it, talk it out, teach, then obviously go through it live, and then the power play getting, their opportunity to go out, same thing. Walk through it, teach, get live reps, and that's kind of really what I was after today.
So there's Scott Arniel yesterday on practicing the special teams. I'll do one more. You're probably wondering, hey, they're putting in these new systems here in training camp. Is this going to be easy or hard for them to get used to these new changes and have them ingrained in their mind?
Most players have, we're not reinventing the wheel. They've played it somewhere or sort of a look of it. There's more things that it's not so much where the positioning of, whether it's our power play or whether it's our penalty kill, it's the stick detail, it's the attack the net mentality, it's our returns, our penalty killers, how fast they work to get back. It's more of that stuff. It isn't so much about positioning where you're standing, where you're. It really is about some of the little detail stuff that we're really trying to hammer home, so that those 4 guys on the penalty killer are on the same page, and then vice versa, our power play, our 5 guys, they know when a certain look happens that I need to be here, I need to get to this point, I need to, be an outlet on this in this situation. So it's kind of, that'll be sort of what's taught now from the games. Tomorrow night's game, we'll take video and we'll put that in there and showing them the examples of when they're doing the right things that we've been coaching here.
There's Scott Arniel from yesterday, and Connor, before we get to Scott Cullen, just what are you looking forward to seeing from tonight's Jets game against the Edmonton Oilers? Is there anything you're keeping your eye out for?
Specifically, Brad Lambert. I think I did mention off the top that this is the closest lineup that we've seen so far, definitely, to what we'll see on opening night. And Brad Lambert is the second line center on a line with Vladislav Nemestikov and Nikolai Ehlers. And I think that, along with, I think most Jets fans are going to be watching for that, how Lambert and Ehlers are able to play together, because if they have instant chemistry, if their speed, they're moving at the same pace, Ehlers is definitely a more explosive player as he's in the prime of his career, and Lambert's just starting out. But those 2 players are so fascinating, so electrifying, so fast, that if they can click together, it could be a really dynamic option on that second line for Scott Arniel and this coaching staff. So I'm watching for that. I'm not expecting them to, come out and have a combined 6 points as a line, because they're just found chemistry. But if there is something there, I'd like to see it. And this is what preseason is for, watching these young prospects play with NHL players. So I'm excited, and hopefully Brad Lambert can seize the opportunity and make a good case as the opening night second line center.
There you go. Brad Lambert, Connor's player to watch. You got to, before we go to Huss here, favorite hockey term. I threw out bumper. Everyone in chat throwing out a high slot, net front presence, half wall. Do you got a favorite hockey term that comes to mind?
I don't know if I haven't thought of that. A favorite term.
Okay.
Bar down is a good one.
But you like going bar down.
Yeah, bar down. I think that's a good one. I do see some confusion on where the bumper is. We're talking about the high slot. I'm done saying bumper because some people think it's the half wall. Some people think it's, again, half wall. What does that mean? Anyways, we could go on and on about power play location terminology, but I'll go bar down. That's a good one. What's yours?
There we go. I see compete, off the glass and out, net crash. And bar down, for people who don't know, that's when you shoot the puck and it hits the crossbar and then goes straight down and in the back.
Hockey 101.
Back of the net. Hockey 101 here. Yeah, we got clapper, pucks in deep. There was a hockey glossary at illegalcurve.com that I think still gets hits to this day. But we're going to get to Scott Cullen for some more hockey talk. He's with McKeen's Hockey. Love talking with Scott. But first, here's Huss.
But as I said, if you missed it yesterday, normally we do CFL 110 on Wednesdays. We did it early this year, folks. We did it for our friends at Garage Living Winnipeg on Monday because Jeff Hamilton is away and I am going to be away tomorrow. So check that out wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can search CFL 110 and it's up right now on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. A big thanks to Garage Living Winnipeg for their support. Guys, we're into fall and the push is on. If you want to have a clean, organized garage this fall before the snow flies, give Garage Living Winnipeg a call at 999-1234. Pat's been getting lots of calls. As soon as back to school hit, people are suddenly seeing all the bikes, hockey, and football equipment, you name it, strewn all over the garage. Garage Living has an innovative solution called Slatwall. Dozens of hooks, baskets, and shelves that clip into it to get everything off your floor. There's even a cool golf club caddy and tire racks to store those winter tires. And the cool thing is you can do as much or as little of it as you want to fit in within your budget. This is your chance to clear the clutter, organize and beautify your garage with Slatwall, as well as beautiful polyaspartic floor coating and made in Canada premium metal cabinetry for a total garage makeover. Check out their website at garageliving.com. All their great work's shown there. And give our pal Pat Kanuga a buzz, 204-999-1234. to book a free in-garage consultation or make an appointment to meet him at their showroom at 981 Main Street. Garage Living Winnipeg. Garage is made for living. CFL 110 up right now on the WST YouTube channel. If you and your family have a move coming up in the next few months, or really any time, give our pals at Rolly's Transfer a call for the white glove treatment from the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba for over 60 years. Rolly has an extensive logistics business that takes them throughout the city and province on a daily basis, which means flexible timing, flexible routes, and great prices on that move. And you can get an even better price on that move being a WST listener. Check out their great website, Rollies.com. Top right corner, there is a request an estimate button. Click on that. Let them know when you're moving, where you're moving, and what you're moving, and make sure to put in WST in the promo code for a special discount for WST listeners on moving services and moving supplies. For your next move, make it Rollies, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, family owned for over 60 years. Find out more or request an estimate today at Rollies.com.
There's Huss. He's in Montreal at the President's Cup, or on his way there. So I'm in the host chair. He'll be joining us throughout the week, hopefully providing some video content with his brand new iPhone 16 Pro, not the Pro Max. That's the one, the step below. Who can keep track of all the iPhone terms? Who can keep track of all the hockey terms everyone in the chat is listing off? A guy who knows about those, Scott Cullen, McKeen's Hockey. What's going on, Scott? How are you? Have a favorite hockey term, as everyone in the chat is just off the rails after a conversation about the bumper spot on the power play?
Yeah. I love hockey terms, to be honest. But my favorite is going back to the many years ago when I played, was the backhand 5-hole deke.
Oh,
That was like my preferred move on breakaways, and so I have an affinity for the backhand 5-hole deke.
I think that's Adam Lowry's signature move, and there's a YouTube short on this channel highlighting that. Teams may have caught on, but Scott, you did have your Jets season preview out. I saw you put that out on your X feed at by Scott Cullen. But first, we did have some Jets news. Cole Perfetti signing the 2-year deal. What was your reaction when you heard the 2-year, $3.25 million AAV contract?
Well, it seemed like something that should have already been done. That this might have dragged out longer than necessary. But I think, in the grand scheme of it, it shouldn't hamper him in any way going into this season. I think the whole thing with Perfetti this year is hoping that he has a coach that trusts him more, that he can get more ice time and more consistently. Because last year, quite frankly, like first half of the year, he was quite reasonably productive in a secondary scoring role for the Jets, and there was a lot to like about that. But maybe not enough for Rick Bowness, I guess, because all of a sudden the ice time started to dwindle and his role started to be less and less, and then you kind of look at the end of the year and you're like, well, this is really not how you had hoped the development path was going to go. And look, there are coaches in every sport who are so much more invested in their veteran players, older guys, and they just don't want to put up with the mistakes that you get with a younger player. But there are times that these younger players, you need them to develop and become contributing parts of your team. And I think that there was maybe a missed opportunity, I would term it as, last year with Perfetti, and hopefully that this year, now that he's signed and ready to go, that there isn't a missed opportunity. They can put him in and he can be a quality secondary scorer for them right away.
Yeah, it sounds like he's going to be getting a bigger role this year and a chance to improve on last year's totals. We're seeing a big trend here with young players like Dylan Guenther, barely played a full season, gets this massive contract. What are your thoughts on, giving a player like that who's barely played so much money just right off the hop?
It's a very much a calculated risk. And like, to me, those kinds of contracts are very much like baseball. In baseball, you get to points where teams are like, look, we're going to buy out arbitration years. We're going to buy out early free agency years. And you're going to get this money up front. But it's going to be, bird in the hand for the player that, okay, you're going to get that money there. But maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, when you're in your peak years, this is going to be a really good deal for the team. And that's kind of the trade-off here. And I think if you listen to players talk about the way Dylan Guenther can shoot, the thing is, like, the vast majority of NHL players have great shots, right? Like, compared to, the regular human skating out on the ice, they all have great shots. But to be at a level where the other NHL players are kind of, their jaws are dropping and they're, amazed by the caliber of your shot, that really stands out. And so I think that Guenther, that's basically what the Coyotes are banking on here, or sorry, the Coyotes, the Utah hockey team. That's what they're banking on, is that Guenther is going to be one of these guys who can score, 35 goals, 40 goals. I think I heard Clayton Keller say that he could get 50. And so, when you expect that kind of production, it's, no surprise that the team is willing to take a run at him early before the numbers get out of range.
Yeah, 35 points in 45 games last year. That was a contract earlier this week. 8-year, $57.14 million. Kind of, your eyes kind of widened a little when you saw, he's played 78 career games. Good for him. Maybe you overpay now, but in the future, you're getting him at a value contract. And again, players get to free agency. You're giving us so many players over 29. When you're finally a free agent, these big long-term deals where you're paying them for past production, and more and more teams realizing, hey, you got to pay for the future production. And a lot of these veteran guys having trouble finding contracts now. But looking ahead to this season, you just put out your Jets preview, McKeen's hockey. I mean, it seems like the Jets had a great year last year, finished 4th, bringing back pretty much the same team except for Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt. What are your expectations for the Jets in what looks like a really tough Central Division?
That's the key point, I think, right there, is that the Central Division looks like a real gauntlet that, between Dallas and Colorado and Winnipeg and Nashville, that those are really strong teams. And like, I think St. Louis is going to be a reasonably competitive team. They might still be on the outside looking in when we get to the end of the year. But I think that when the Jets I think they exceeded all expectations last year. And I think if they're going to do it again, they probably need a similar path. And that means, Connor Hrabchak has to be the best goalie in the world and, be in the Vezina Trophy conversation now. And that's entirely reasonable. Like the way Hrabchak has played, for the vast majority of his career, it's not unreasonable to think that he's going to be among the top few goaltenders in the league and can give them that kind of performance over the course of the season. But when I look at, kind of the core players on the Jets, you're looking at some guys who are starting to get older. You've got guys who aren't necessarily the most durable. And so there's going to be some, kind of high wire act here that, if a few injuries hit, things could go sideways. But on the other hand, if, there is talent, obviously, between Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers and Perfetti and Gabriel Velarde, like you've got guys who can put the puck in the net, and it's not, that kind of stuff can't just be assumed, right? There are a bunch of NHL teams who would, kill to have that kind of talent up front. And so the fact that the Jets have that is what gives them a chance to be competitive. But I think if they're going to be, like a 110-point team like they were last year, it's going to be dependent on Hrabchak being great again, because he's the one who can kind of deliver results that separate from the pack.
Yeah, we've never really had to deal with here seeing Hrabchak out for an extended period of time. And when he's in, he's one of the top in the league, and they'll go as far as he goes. But I agree, they do. Velarde was in and out of the lineup last year when he was in, and there was a period where he was the best player, one of the best players in the NHL. Cole Perfetti had a great first half. Didn't have the same results in the second half. And Nick Ehlers played full 82 last year and is looking for an increased role this season. The Jets are playing Edmonton tonight, and they went to the Stanley Cup final last year. You expect them, are they the favorite now to return to the Cup final for this upcoming season?
Well, they're the favorites in the betting market, and I think that's deserved. That, when you see what the Oilers brought back, from last season, like the core of their team, plus they had Jeff Skinner, plus they had Victor Arvidsson. They've probably lost a little on defense. Cody Ceci and Philip Broberg are not superstars on the blue line, but they're probably better than what they were replaced by. And so, there's a little bit to be offset there, I think, on the Edmonton blue line. But I think overall, when you look at what the Oilers have, they're deserving favorites. If I kind of scour the betting sites to see, I tend to think that they might be, they might not offer great value as the favorites. That yes, they're deserving favorites. They're not that much better than the second, third, fourth, and fifth teams that are contending. So that's kind of my take on it, is that I think yes, Edmonton should be the favorite, but I think you can go through Dallas, Colorado, Florida. Those teams should be fairly close in the hunt too.
Yeah, a lot of good teams, as you mentioned. Edmonton, they're the top team. Then Florida, New Jersey is up there, which for a team that hasn't really proved anything, still.
You know what that is that the biggest problem for the Devils last year was goaltending. Like,
yeah,
their underlying numbers were pretty good, and they had injuries too. Like Jack Hughes missed time, Dougie Hamilton missed time. But the trade for Jacob Markstrom, like if that solves the goaltending issue for them, now I do tend to think that the odds are again maybe a touch optimistic on the Devils, but I can understand why the expectations have shifted for a team that did not finish very high in the standings last year. They seem to address what their most glaring needs were pretty well in the offseason.
Yeah, and again, talk about the stack Central. It wasn't really that a couple of years ago after being so dominant for a while. Dallas up there, Colorado, Nashville now with their ads, and Utah. They're coming along. Maybe not this year, but certainly in the future. Toronto, really high Stanley Cup odds. Is that just because they're like the Dallas Cowboys of without the 90s cups?
It has to be. That, like, how do you look at a team that hasn't won a Stanley Cup since 1967? I think I've heard that once or twice before.
Yeah.
That, if they haven't won a cup since 1967, how do you have them like at Pinnacle, where I write, they're the third Stanley Cup favorite? And I'm like, wow, I get it. The Leafs have some really great players, and like, there are times when I'm watching a game and Matthews and Marner and Nylander and everything's flowing. You're like, oh wow, yeah, they look like a great team. But my goodness, to think that they're the third favorite for the Stanley Cup is that to me is optimistic. So I think a lot of that is just there are a lot of Leaf fans who are willing to put some money down and hope that this is finally the year.
We're going around the Canadian teams. A big debate here since Montreal acquired Patrik Laine, if he's enough to put Montreal back in the playoffs. They got a number of young players, Caulfield and Suzuki, they're kind of getting older. We're seeing Lane Hutson, viral saucer passes come up on social media. You see Montreal making a run for the playoffs this year?
Well, I'd be surprised, and some of it is I don't know that their goaltending duo is enough, but I think that they're a more interesting team right now. When they added Hudson right at the very end of last season, and the way Slafkovsky played in the second half of the year, they put him on the line with Nick Suzuki, and he blossomed as a power forward. And you can kind of play to his strengths. Like Suzuki can be the one who sets him up, and Slafkovsky can use his size to battle on the boards and get open in front of the net. And he was very effective. And so given how he had played a couple years ago as the first overall pick, this was a huge development for Montreal. And so I think they've got a lot of promising young players, and that they should be an improved and competitive team. And if Laine stays healthy and scores them 30 plus goals, well then they should be more competitive. I would still be really surprised if they're a playoff team. I think even if everything is going right, I look at the goaltending tandem of Montembeault and Primo, and I'm not thinking that that's enough to get you into the playoffs. But one thing with Montreal is that they've really gone about this rebuild in kind of this very patient way, where they've stockpiled assets. And so when a player like Laine came available and Montreal was, an acceptable destination for him, they had a surplus of defensemen that they could, offer out to Columbus to get him. And so I kind of expect that there's probably one more year of that for Montreal, where they've got a good stockpile of young assets and pieces that they can move if they're going to, get more immediately competitive. But I think they're probably a year away before I'd hold the playoff hopes for them.
Yeah, Slafkovsky is interesting. There were so many people on his rookie season saying, "Oh, well, he's a bust. He's the worst first overall pick since Yakupov." But you look at his last couple of months: 11 points, 11 games in February, 10 and 13 March, 9 and 9 in April. I did play him a bunch on DraftKings when he was getting top power play minutes. I know we're about to wrap up, but fantasy drafts just around the corner. You have your projections out on your Substack, which I would direct people to. They can find it on your X page by Scott Cullen. But is there a player going late in drafts that you've got your eye on this year that might be going undervalued?
Well, I will tell you, as we're literally just talking about Montreal, I think Lane Hutson is really interesting. And, he's as a rookie defenseman, it may be tough for him to put up numbers, but I also look at, Montreal as a team that should kind of be able to turn him loose and let him play to his strengths. And I think Hutson has the chance to be, really productive and well worthwhile for fantasy players. And honestly, who we talked about earlier, to Dylan Guenther, because I think, in general, the players who are playing in Arizona now playing in Utah are overlooked, in part just because the media is not covering those teams in the same way that they do in Winnipeg or Toronto or Montreal, or like where you're saturated with the news. You're not saturated with the news on that team. And so Guenther, I think, has real good potential. I think Logan Cooley, as Guenther had such a great finish last year, so did Cooley. Pretty sure he had like a point a game in his last 16 games. And so if you're looking at, young players who have a chance to maybe pop and do something special this season, and you'll be able to get them later. I think those are a couple.
All right, can't wait to the season get underway, fantasy drafts and all that. Scott, thanks so much for coming on. Great talking to you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
There he is. Appreciate it. There he is, Scott Cullen. He's with Pinnacle, McKeen's Hockey. Got his own projections out. Check him out again on X, formerly known as Twitter, by Scott Cullen. We're going to talk Bombers, getting ready for the Elks with Darrin Bauming. But first, here's Huss.
Looks like we're going to have some beautiful weather coming in for the remainder of September for the most part. Might be time to get a few more projects done or maybe even started. Heck, our friends at Consolidated Supply can help you with so much. You really have to pop in and see them at their showroom at 1395 Niagara to see it, to believe it. But, I mean, where do we start? They're the leaders in irrigation solutions and systems. Had a big start to the year considering how wet our May and June was. But so much more than that, artificial turf. You want that dream putting green in the backyard? They can make that happen. Something inside, no problem. Golf carts, the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, both new and used, as well as other innovative vehicles from Club Car with industrial usage. And then other great options for your property like hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens. They're also the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Get on down and see Consolidated Supply at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or find out more online at cte.ca. And before we bring in Pagnotta, a huge shout out to our friends at Manitoba Battery. You know, batteries, we take them for granted at times, certainly in the winter. But you know, when your car or your truck won't start, who are you to call? And that, of course, is Manitoba Battery. Now, Manitoba Battery has batteries for literally everything. They've been powering boats and campers and ATVs and all the fun stuff this summer. But very soon it's going to be getting down to business for another Manitoba winter. For all of your battery needs, make sure you're prepared and do it locally and get the best prices in town. Manitoba Battery, beating the pants off the big box stores on price and with the best service as well. You can see them on Logan Avenue or on Dover Court at either of their two locations, or you can give them a call or order online, and Manitoba Battery will deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. Shop local. They'll bring it to you. Order online today at manitobabattery.com.
There's Huss on his way to Montreal. President's Cup International versus American. But here, we're getting set. Bombers Elks, the rematch, Friday night, Princess Auto Stadium. Pumped to talk with Darrin Bauming, Bonfire Sports here on YouTube. You're going to have the Bonfire pregame show with Chris Walby. We'll raid you guys after our show tomorrow. Darrin, what's going on? Thanks for hopping on here.
Busy times, Michael Remis. Good to be with you, though.
Yeah, here, I think you might be hearing yourself back. Let me just do a little fixing of that. Darrin, I mean, big win for the Bombers in first place. What do you think of that game against the Elks in Edmonton on Saturday?
That was a weird one, right? Like to see a CFL game be 3-0 at the half, and then to see the way it finished with Winnipeg, really handling business and being in control through the second half. I think we're really starting to see proof positive that this defense can find different ways to win, can face different styles of quarterbacks and still be dominant. And to see them take the ball away 4 times in the first half, and force Edmonton to go to McLeod Bethel Thompson after, they decided to start Trey Ford, was interesting, because we know these two teams, I think the game was lost for Edmonton at that point. They were trying to get something going, but knowing these teams are playing again 6 days apart, of course, this will be Friday night, as you mentioned, at Princess Auto Stadium. Interesting to see that quarterback change when they did make it. I'm thinking it's going to be MBT on Friday night.
Yeah, he's going to start, and I think they thought they could have done better against the Bombers on Saturday. How about this clip from MBT after practice? Shout out to the Elks YouTube. MBT saying the Elks let the Bombers off the hook whatever that means.
We felt like as much as we respect and know how good Winnipeg is, we felt we let them off the hook, so it was frustrating to have them come into our house and walk away with one. So now we know we got a big week ahead and a big challenge ahead, right? They're a better team at home. The crowd gets into it. It's a hostile environment. We have to go on silent cadence. We know what Willie can do with that. We know what their offense can do with their vibing off of the crowd. So we know we put ourselves in a tough spot, but at some point in this season we have to go in and beat Winnipeg, right? If it's now or if we're lucky enough to get in playoffs, it'll be later. So why not now? And it's a big week, and we're very excited.
MBT saying they let the Bombers off the hook. I don't know. I think maybe the Bombers let them off the hook with all those turnovers and not being able to capitalize. I thought it seemed like they were winning with him, and then they went back to Trey Ford. I was confused that they announced so early that Trey Ford was going to be starting. I don't know what you make of this Elks quarterback situation and his comments there. Let him off the hook.
Yeah, old Denny Green from the Arizona Cardinals days, right, where he was smacking the side of the podium, letting him off the hook. Look, I understand that perspective from Edmonton. The game was 10-10 entering the fourth quarter, and Winnipeg scored 17 points in the final quarter of the ball game to win 27-14. So they probably felt, they were handling business. They felt that they were in that game. And obviously, when you turn the ball over that many times, you suspect, okay, well, if we're not doing that, if we're avoiding those incredibly costly mistakes, we're going to be scoring. So Edmonton probably thought they should have won that game. And, I kind of get that perspective. But I think you need to have that perspective when you turn the ball over like that. You lose the first of the home and home at home. And then as McLeod Bethel Thompson, we just heard him say there, you got to enter a hostile environment. So I think letting them off the hook is maybe good inside the Edmonton Elks locker room speech to keep guys, positive hopes high, because Winnipeg is a very good football team. And when they needed to, they were dominant over Edmonton. Edmonton has to really understand that how that game went down, they could have won if they didn't, turn the ball over the way they did. And I'm sure they look at those turnovers as avoidable mistakes. But we'll see how Friday night shakes out. I mean, it's the CFL, the crazy football league. I've been saying it over and over again all season. When a month and a half ago, nobody would have expected these two teams to be vying for playoff position, let alone CFL game of the week, 2 weeks in a row, and Winnipeg in first place now. So the crazy football league, you never know what you're going to get. Friday's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'll never forget 2 weeks ago, week 15, where Toronto went into BC and won. Hamilton won at home over Ottawa, and Calgary, who, I don't know, was kind of left for dead, tied Montreal, who you have to think is the favorite right now for the Grey Cup. Just people asking about injuries. Well, I haven't seen anything today. I know yesterday Lucky Whitehead didn't practice, but he hadn't really, he hadn't been practicing and still playing. Kyrie Wilson didn't practice, back on the sixth game after he tried to play Saturday, did not play. Brian Cole practiced again. He's been on the sixth game for 7 games, Derek Taylor reporting. And it was Nick Hallett on the Bombers. They tweeted out their practice report. He didn't practice yesterday. We'll wait and see, if there's any changes or anything coming. But it's amazing to think, Darrin, the Bombers starting 0-4 and now in a position to clinch a playoff spot on Friday. What has changed in the Bombers game since that 0-4 start?
Honestly, nothing. And I know that sounds crazy to say or to hear, right? But they're doing the exact same things they did in that rough start to the season. Less turnovers. Of course, that always helps. I think the defense has evolved and it's continuing to gel and get better all the time. But collectively as a team, their approach, the way the coaches are coaching, the way, the coordinators are calling plays and scheming and game planning, all of that, I don't think a lot has changed. I think the best is yet to come when it comes to Zach Collaros and the Blue Bombers offense. Missing Dalton Schoen for the whole season, I think, is paramount of reason why Winnipeg hasn't been as good offensively than they were the last couple years. Losing Kenny Lawler for a good stretch, changes on that offensive line. We see them getting better all the time, but still haven't put together a full 60-minute effort. Defensively, as I mentioned, like they're continuing to gel. And again, changes, right? Moving on from Jackson Jeffcoat, new starters in Celestin Haba and Taiwan Garbutt. They were both banged up early in the year. Losing a starter in Cameron Lawson at the defensive line at tackle is a tough one. Now losing Adam Bighill for the season, and a guy that was a member of the Edmonton Elks in training camp. They gave him a contract extension this past offseason and then ended up cutting him in training camp. And that's Tony Jones, who has emerged as one of the most impactful players on this Blue Bombers defense over the last 2-3 weeks. So Kyrie Wilson, very strange situation there, right, Remo? Like losing Adam Bighill for the season. Kyrie, okay, he's ready to go, missed a couple months, come off the 6th game, and then to get some sort of injury snag in warmups ahead of that game in Edmonton last week, and now back on the 6th game and not practicing. Very peculiar and weird situation, but such an important piece of this Bombers defense. They found a way to, ride those waves and to get contributions from other players on the defense. The back end has been incredible. Dietrich Nichols, the work of Terrell Bonds as a rookie at corner, obviously Evan Holm and a real breakout season for Canadian Tyrell Ford. They've been outstanding. And I think a big reason why the linebacking core has been able to handle a lot of different personnel, and the D line is finding ways to disrupt quarterbacks, even though they tend to only rush 3 or 4 guys, is because of the really good play of that back end. So to come back around to answer your question, what's changed? Nothing other than the results. A lot of those losses early in the season, like a couple, they got beat up pretty bad. Week 1 against Montreal, they really got stomped. But a lot of those other losses were games where a play or two different, you would have had a different result. And I think it almost would have, you could have almost said it would be 7 wins in a row if they didn't completely trip over their own feet time and time and time again in that overtime loss in Toronto to the Argonauts. That was their last loss prior to this 6-game winning streak. So Winnipeg's been playing really well for, 2 months now. This final stretch, of course, will determine a lot. And it's amazing. The crazy football league, things change in games, but they also change really quickly in the standings as well.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you. As silly as it might sound, you start 0-4, but I think they did not play well in week 1. I mean, they were rusty off the preseason, but week 2, 3, and 4, they're all 1-score games. Maybe some fumbles. You lose one of those games in overtime. They really could have gone either way, but the defense has improved, the offense coming together. And I don't know if they learned something from last year where they dominated the entire regular season and kind of slowed down near the end. Seems like they're trying to have the mindset, okay, we're going to peak at the right time like Montreal did last season. The Bombers are favored against Edmonton -4.5 for tomorrow's game. And you'll be doing the post-game Bonfire YouTube. Check that out, Bonfire Sports Winnipeg. The pregame tomorrow with Chris Walby, 3 o'clock after us. So, hey, subscribe to Darren's channel. Check out our channel here. If you're not subscribed, hit the button, hit the thumbs up. Helps YouTube show it to more people. I know you don't want to get into this conversation, Darrin, but I think it is fascinating. MOP, 3 letters. I think it's a big award. Most outstanding player. Not most valuable, but most outstanding. We're going to see the last month of the season here who separates themselves. But who you got if you're voting right now for league MOP?
Incredibly difficult question to ask. And, I've had the honor to vote on these awards for a number of years now, and I have no idea at this point. I look at certain teams and I have no idea who their MOP is just in that team itself. Picking the West Division or the East Division as, how the voting goes, that's very difficult. It was Vernon Adams Jr. through the first third or half of the season. He started to struggle. And then injury forced, a quick signing and to see Nathan Rourke come in. Cody Fajardo has missed a lot of time for the Montreal Alouettes. Drew Brown, I think, still leads the CFL in quarterback wins. He was really bad in a 24-12 loss this past week against the Montreal Alouettes in, a critical game and how the East Division standings are shaping up. Roland Milligan has been very, very good defensive back and as a special teamer as well with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. He and Tyrell Ford tied for the CFL lead with 6 interceptions. Nobody on the D line really across the league super jumping out to me as far as consistent production and impact throughout the entire season so far. Willie Jefferson, kind of gets a de facto nod from me as an all-star just because I know how impactful he is in games and how hard he is to game plan against and play against. But when it comes to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who is their MOP? Is it Brady Oliveira? Quite possibly. Will he get the love from other voters, in other markets and across the league? I'm not sure. The touchdown numbers aren't there because Chris Streveler kind of hawked a lot of those touchdowns from him when he was healthy. Brady, hits 1,000 yards and gets his first 2 rushing touchdowns of the season in Edmonton last week. And to hit 1,000 yards at this point, I think is outstanding. But as I previously mentioned, tied with Roland Milligan for the CFL lead in interceptions is Tyrell Ford. To see a Canadian in back-to-back years, let alone both Winnipeg Blue Bombers, to be in that conversation for league's most outstanding player, I think is awesome. It shows how good the Canadian talent is, not just in this league, but how many are playing for NFL teams right now is over 24, I believe, on active rosters. And, it's just been one of those years, Remo. No idea who is going to elevate, who is going to kind of separate themselves amongst the cream at the of the crop right now when it comes to those CFL awards. But whoever continues and whoever maybe puts together a complete season is going to get that love. But this could be one of the most divided and most difficult years to vote on when it comes to MOP in the CFL.
Yeah, and there was so much debate last year with Chad Kelly versus Brady Oliveira. I don't think Chad Kelly didn't even have the best quarterback season, and for him to be named the MOP.
Don't get me started, man.
We don't. There's some heated debates. We had it on this show, and even in the lobby of the hotel at the Grey Cup, Hustler and Steve Simmons started yelling at each other about MOP. One of the funniest things that
sorry, I missed that.
that I've seen. They bumped into each other. Hey, I haven't seen you in so long. And then just started yelling face to face about the MOP. I don't know if we'll get that, but I think you can make an argument for or against anyone. I did retweet Bryson Vesnaver from PFF. He does CFL stats. He's like, yeah, I can make any argument for any player or for or against any player. So it will be fascinating as we have the playoff races and all that. Is there a game other than the Bomber game you got your eye on this weekend?
Yeah, just looking at the schedule here. Hamilton never seems to play well in BC. BC needs all the help that they can get. To see Ottawa go into Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan finally ended their 2 months of ineptitude with a win last week. Montreal at Toronto. That's probably game number 2. I would kind of rank them out in the CFL Week 17. Edmonton, Winnipeg, the rematch, and how that game was so weird and close for so long until Winnipeg kind of ran away with it on the scoreboard in the fourth quarter. Edmonton, Winnipeg, Friday night right here in the at Princess Auto Stadium. That's the game of the week. And I heard a rumor it's going to be announced to sell out any minute now.
You heard correctly. The Bombers did tweet out.
There you go.
Minutes ago, Connor texted me. What is it here? Sold out, 6 minutes. Kickoff 7 p.m. Princess Auto tailgate opening at 5. Don't miss out. They still have tickets for the final regular season home game on October 11, but it will be a sell. Great night, Friday, September. I'll tell you my game, Friday night, the late game, Hamilton at BC. Love 9:30 CFL games. We didn't get any on Saturday this year. Big disappointment, but we do have Friday now because they don't play Sunday. But Nathan Rourke, I don't know if he's starting or not. I actually haven't checked. I think he should be after getting pulled.
I think he is.
Wasn't his fault that he didn't have any time to throw last game, and they pulled him after he scored a rushing touchdown. Didn't make any sense. Cost me money on DraftKings, but it's his time at home against Hamilton to have a big game because he did not have one. And Bo Levi, he's making the case for MOP and trying to get Hamilton towards the playoffs as they're 5-9. Darrin, thanks for hopping on. We'll check out you tomorrow, the Bonfire pregame with Walby, and after the game Friday on your YouTube channel as well. Thanks so much for hopping on here, Darrin.
Yes, sir. Good to be with you. I'll be watching you and Murat up next.
There we go. Darrin Bauming, at Darrin Bauming on X, formerly known as Twitter. We're going to get deep into some Winnipeg Jets conversation. He's back from practice, getting ready for tonight's game. Murat of The Athletic, but first, here is Hustler.
Of course, we got a big Blue Bomber game on Friday night, the rematch, Bombers Elks, MBT starting for the Edmonton Elks coming into Princess Auto Stadium to take on the Bombers. Other big news, Jeremiah Masoli getting the start for Ottawa in Saskatchewan. We'll be all over it this week on the show. Of course, all of our Bomber reports are brought to you by Princess Auto, proud sponsors of WST, and of course, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And the home of the Bombers, Princess Auto Stadium, will be packed and will be rocking on Friday night for the big game. Get there early. Princess Auto tailgate zone 2 hours before game time. $5 beers, $3.50 poppin' hot dogs, entertainment, inflatables for the kids. It is absolutely the place to be. Weather looks like it's going to be gorgeous. So get on out there early and make the entire Princess Auto Stadium experience a full one with the Princess Auto tailgate party beforehand. Of course, Princess Auto founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg, taking care of our Bomber fans and, of course, Winnipeg sports fans as well. You can get the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new at Princess Auto. Visit them on Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Speaking of Princess Auto Stadium, I hope that they have replenished the Canadian Club stock coming out of the Banjo Bowl for the game on Friday. Canadian Club is, of course, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and is available throughout Princess Auto Stadium on game days. While you're there, you might want to check out Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, premixed cocktail in cans. One of my favorite drinks of the summer and a very popular one for Bomber fans as well. That is available at Princess Auto Stadium. And while the entire Canadian Club family of spirits are available at your local Manitoba Liquor Mart, you can also pick up CC and Ginger on your next trip to your local beer store, so keep your eyes out on that. Big thanks to Canadian Club for their continued support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Folks, if you have fencing or overhead door needs, there's only one place you need to go in Winnipeg, and that, of course, is Wallace & Wallace. And that hasn't changed for about 7 decades because they've been the leaders in both since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, Wallace & Wallace has you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if you need a new garage door, talk to the experts at Wallace & Wallace about one because they have the largest selection in Manitoba as the exclusive Clopay dealer in town. That new garage door will beautify your house and add value to it as well. Give Wallace & Wallace a call, 204-452-2700. Their team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com, wallacedoors.com, or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenaston. And folks, while we've got gorgeous weather this week, fall is pretty much here. And as we get into the new season, if you are looking into your closet and realize that you need to maybe up your menswear game, we got you covered. Head on down to F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown for the best in custom men's clothing. Custom suits beginning at just $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the best selection of menswear accessories available in town. If you are getting married this year or in a wedding party coming up in the future, make sure to talk to the fellas at F about a 15% discount for the entire wedding party when you get your suits at F Apparel. F is at 190 Smith Street downtown. You can find out more information or book an appointment to come in for a fitting online at F. That's EPHapparel.com.
There is Huss. He's in Montreal at the President's Cup. Big golf tournament. Looking forward to seeing whatever content Hustler brings down from there. He did actually make some good content last night during the WST poker tourney, reviewing the mystery Mountain Dew flavor. I might even play that, so stick around to the end of the show for that piece of elite content. But I'm pretty pumped to bring in right now, fresh off Jets practice, Murat Atesh. Murat, what's going on? How's your week been? How was the day at the skate?
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be here without Huss. We can do it our way.
Yeah.
Life is good. It's probably the Cole Perfetti news and then his return to camp where there's no sort of uncertainty about who's available, who's not available. For me, that has been not quite as relieving as it would be for the coach, obviously, with all the different decisions he has to make. But it feels like camp has begun now. And I felt this way when Kyle Connor and Patrick Laine were in this situation a few years back. It just feels like, okay, now there's an NHL team here. Everybody's in. And now we can finally get a true sense of what it's going to look like, including today against Edmonton.
Yeah, everyone's here. Ville Heinola, he's not here. He got hurt, but you don't have Nikolai Ehlers getting injured on the first 30 seconds of the skate this year. All the forwards are available. Remember that last year? That was that last year or 2 years ago? It was like
was that his neck or
yeah, it was like 2 years. Maybe it was 2 years ago. It was like first 30 seconds. Don't have that. Everyone out. They're all practicing. We are going to see the top line in action tonight. Shifley, Connor, Velarde. But yes, Cole Perfetti, the topic of the week. I talked about the contract with Connor, with Scott Cullen, but I'll ask you a different question. How surprised were you when he said yesterday that the Jets did not make a long-term offer? Because that was something you and Hustler talked about in the summer, saying, hey, this is a guy, they need to lock him up long-term. You're seeing young guys coming out of their ELCs being locked up around the league. I talked with Scott Cullen about Dylan Guenther, just as an example, now different player, but how surprised were you when he said that one yesterday?
Yeah, from like a cap efficiency perspective, I was almost disappointed, but not surprised. It's a situation where I've advocated for it all summer. Winnipeg would be in a really good position if it were able to sign Cole Perfetti long term. And, I was never under the impression, despite writing that, but despite talking to some people around those negotiations, I never got the sense that there was a long-term deal discussed, and just to sort of have that confirmed and all of that, not a shock. A bit disappointing, though. I like Cole Perfetti's ability to outperform a $3.25 million AAV cap hit. That makes sense. I like the range for the Jets. That makes sense. Good work on the bridge. I think all parties can be happy with that number. I think that if you and this is what the Jets would have been afraid to do, right? They would be concerned about some of his early career injuries. They'd be concerned about, the 140 games to date and a little bit of a second half slide last year. And that's the sort of thing that would make them hesitate. But at the same time, I think that the price for Cole Perfetti on a long-term deal now would not be nearly as expensive as it's going to be in 2 years from now. And probably what the Jets did was they did the calculus for themselves and said they'd rather be sure. They'd rather, instead of having a chance to get Cole Perfetti at a cut rate long-term deal in years 3, 4, 5, and 6, they'd rather pay him what they think is fair now and reevaluate later. And if they have to pay more, then great. It's because he's had a great couple of seasons. I still think that the deal that you could have signed him to this summer would give the next generation of Jets a better cap situation than what he's going to sign 2 years from now.
How much do you think the current cap situation factored into that? I'm on Puckpedia. public service announcement, cap friendly, no more. If you were not paying attention all summer, Puckpedia has taken over after those pesky Capitals purchased the website, but they've got 2.5 million. Let's say you have added another 2.5 million AAV, whatever it would take to get a long-term deal done. Do you think that was a factor into their thinking, trying to be flexible for this season?
Well, it's definitely an advantage to have that extra space. And just to note too, I think that we're looking at, one player at least pulled off of that roster. So it's probably a functional amount of cap space, just a little bit more than 3 right now, because I don't think everybody on the Puckpedia roster is going to make opening day. So that's a couple of things. One is it's enough money from my point of view that, I don't know Cole Perfetti's camp would have taken this, but I was imagining a long-term deal at 6, which would have shocked a lot of people in the short term. But in the years to come, I think he would be well worth more than a lot more than that, to be clear, especially as the cap's gone up over the years and will continue to go up. There would have been enough room to do that. That's one lesson of seeing that cap space. And so, okay, fine. But what are the team's other priorities? And your question is right on for that. So I think the Jets are a win now club. They have a pretty clear hole, at least on paper, on defense. That top 4, Dylan Samberg, I have a lot of faith in, but that top 4 gives up a lot of size, a lot of strength. There's certain weaknesses that were available on last year's team that might be available and maybe exploitable on this year's team as well when stuff hits the fan. So I think that there are some clear shopping list items on the Winnipeg Jets side, and the greater degree of cap flexibility they have. If they're starting the year with more or less 3 million, and that prorates and it builds up and it builds up, and you're almost around double that or what have you by deadline day. I forget the actual ratio. That's a lot of shopping money, and it's the sort of money you can add an impact player, and it's also the sort of money, if you're thinking in the future when a lot of these UFAs expire at the end of this deal, where Winnipeg might be able to acquire somebody, even sign them long term as well.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting to see how it plays out if Samberg can take the jump to a second pair. The third pair D seems to be one of the battles to watch in training camp. But just finishing up on Perfetti, what are your expectations for him this year in terms of role and output? Is he the player from the first 40 games of the year where he was on a 59 point per 82 game pace? He had 29 points in the first 40, or is he the player who hit a wall in the second half and was benched and couldn't get into the lineup and had won a 23 game stretch without a goal and only 2 assists? What do you think we're going to see from Cole this year? Now this is done and he's here and in the lineup.
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge for him, is to turn not only his first half, but I think his first 21 games, he had 19 points too. So there's even a bit of an intensity in the first half of the first half, if I recall correctly. So his challenge is going to be to grow, to take a step forward, to do all those things that young players do. And then also to sort of prove to himself and to the Jets and to all of us that, that high level of play that he reached, where he was, darned near a point per game for a little early while there, is something that he can get to. What's realistic though? And I took a run at that at the Athletic today for part of the piece that I put up. And what it did, or what I've done, is I've taken his minutes and I've filtered them through what Scott Arniel has told us so far. Top 6 forward with power play time. We don't know if Perfetti's going to be on that first unit. Nikolai Ehlers is getting the first look there in that high slot position, and certainly there's going to be a lot of interchange there. But Cole Perfetti is going to get a look there. And I think that there's some minutes that are going to increase. I think at 5-on-5, he conservatively should be playing 90 seconds to 2 minutes more per night this season than last. And so if you run all that through the full season numbers that he put together, so you count the hot streak, you count the cold streak, and say this was Cole Perfetti last year, we're looking at a 50-point floor for this player. If there's development, if the game starts to slow down for him, if his size and strength gets him into more situations, if he gets a heavy dosage of first unit time, there are reasons to think that 50 points is a floor, and 60 might be a realistic ceiling in a breakthrough sort of season for him. That's the range I've established. Although opportunity, line mates, power play time. These are the sorts of things that can change on a dime, and we'll see what he gets in the end.
Yeah, that's something to watch. I mean, how he goes and giving the Jets some secondary scoring will be huge for them and getting back to the playoffs. You mentioned power play time, story of practice yesterday, and you've got it in the Athletic, I guess, after practice. Changes to the power play, to the penalty kill, bottom third, and both of them. It seems like the coaching staff has recognized room for improvement. They brought in new assistant coaches to facilitate that. What did you make of yesterday's changes, what we saw on the power play and penalty kill, and is it a positive development for improvement this year?
Positive developments for sure, and it's early days, right? So we'll see how well they do at executing all the things that are on the table for them now. Starting with the power play, one of the nice changes was they ran drills that started with the entry. Drill after drill after drill. It wasn't just working the puck around the offensive zone. It was working all 5 guys through an entry that, involved a little drop pass and an outlet at the blue line. I think that one of the areas that cost Winnipeg last year was entries. Sometimes they would get a little hemmed up through the neutral zone. That's a small aspect, a little detail that says, okay, well, they're looking at that. The biggest change in Winnipeg's power play is likely to be the amount of movement on it. There's going to be interchange depending on situations, depending on, let's say there's a puck shot and retrieved and now players are in different spots. It's not going to be reset it to Mark Scheifele on the left wing boards and he'll look for a pass from there. They ran different, looks, different orientations of their power play where, okay, sometimes it was Scheifele on the half wall. You had Ehlers in the slot, Vilardi beside the net, Morrissey at the top and Connor at the other side. Okay, we've seen looks like that before. But we also saw Gabriel Vilardi on the right wing boards, quarterbacking from there. We saw Ehlers and Vilardi interchange from their positions. We saw Mark Scheifele in the bumper position at times. There are a lot of different cues for them to move, to interplay, and not just stick with that one setup that we saw so often last year. I think that is going to be the biggest opportunity for growth on the Jets' power play. You have to be able to present more options than a PK can defend. And if you do the same thing every time, it's not going to work. We saw that with Winnipeg. That, for me, Remo, that's a thing that I'm cautiously excited for, if that's such a thing for the Jets special teams.
I know that you tweeted about New Jersey, their power play, how everyone is just moving all the time. I really enjoyed watching Vancouver with Pettersson and Hughes last year. It seemed like anyone could play any position. A shot could come from anywhere. And with watching the Jets, they kind of just stood still, pass it around. Nothing would open up. And then you'd also have zone entries as well, which was a challenge. And putting Nikolai Ehlers, who's one of the best in the league at that, should certainly help. On the flip side, penalty kill. Some new personnel. Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor on the penalty kill. Is that... Are they penalty killers? They're not your prototypical penalty killers, are they?
I mean, they're not your prototypical penalty killers, but the question is, should they be? And, coming out of Toronto and Carolina, where Dean Chenoweth was previously coaching, and those penalty kills were amongst the best in the league during his tenure there. You look at some of the minutes. Last year, I think Mitch Marner was the least most used forward. You have William Nylander towards the top of that chart, and Austin Matthews getting PK time there too. So a lot of these high-skilled guys got into that rotation, were effective. I think one of the things that you'd hope for from players like Connor and Scheifele is usage of their speed and their hockey IQ, making reads at speed and using their feet to get into good situations too. Once upon a time, Wheeler and Scheifele were a penalty-killing duo. And I tracked that. I did video on it. I did a whole series at The Athletic where we dug into it. And what it actually turned out was they were stopping entry attempts further up the ice. They had the green light from their coaches to attack an entry attempt at the red line or above the red line. And they were disrupting plays before they started because they were so much faster than the other guys, like the Lowrys and Kopps of the world that Winnipeg was using at the time. There's also other stuff that goes into it, though. At that time, Scheifele and Wheeler would have gotten the second power play unit more often than not, or after a line change situation. Scott Arniel says one of the ways that power plays picked on the Jets' PK last year was that Adam Lowry was the only really good, reliable faceoff guy, and he was on the left side. Power plays get to choose that opening faceoff location, so they were going right side every single time, and it was leading to a problem for the Jets. And I think his hope is that Mark Scheifele on that right side is going to be a first unit option as well. Take a shift, get that change, and then be ready to go when that power play has been killed off, and now Winnipeg's offensive guns are ready to go the other way.
Yeah, well, if they can get any improvement there, it should help them in the standings, as I mentioned a couple times yesterday and today, bottom third in the league in both. So credit to the coaching staff saying, hey, where can we improve and try to make some changes? Now, we haven't really touched on the game. There is a game tonight, Murat. I do have the lines out here. Go over them in case you missed. Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, and Nemesnikov, Lambert, Ehlers, Nino, Lowry, Jared Anderson, Dolan, abbreviated JAD, Gustafson, Kupari, Ford, and then the defense, pretty standard. Morrissey, DeMello, Sandberg, Pionk, Stanley, Miller, Capo, Kakinen, and Annette. What do you think of tonight's lines, and what are you looking forward to seeing from the roster tonight against an Edmonton team that's not sending their big guns?
Yeah, I mean, veteran heavy for Winnipeg, skill heavy as well. Scott Arniel's gone back to Connor, Scheifele, and Velarde, and that's going to be a thing. And that's going to be a storyline. I know that I saw a little bit of Twitter outrage, and I get it because they got outscored at times and they gave up a ton of chances during the regular season. I think that the idea in Winnipeg is that Velarde was only around for half the season. They like playing together. They see things similarly in the offensive zone, and they should be able to cook that way so that even if there's some puck management issues, and even if Connor and Scheifele don't break out the pucks so well together a lot of the time, that this is going to be an improved version of that trio this year. We'll see. Tonight against a lower level of competition would be a good way for everybody's feet to get wet and for some of that offensive chemistry to develop. Brad Lambert is probably the most exciting part of that roster, though, because it's otherwise looking an awful lot like an NHL roster is going to for the Jets. This is a situation where there's a real job on offer. Lambert might be in tough given his not needing waivers, but he's got good line mates. He's playing with a speedster like Ehlers. He's got Nemesnikov to be a bit of the defensive conscience there. Nemesnikov seems to have chemistry with everybody. Maybe there's something there. And I know that Cole Perfetti will skate with that group with Nemesnikov and Ehlers later this week. It's still an opportunity for Lambert to show that he belongs at this level, and that's going to be fun for all of us. Last thing I'll say about just the lineup, if you haven't seen Jared Anderson-Dolan, I know he's gotten into a game, but at practice, he wins a ton of battles. He's an annoying player to play against. He goes into the hard areas of the ice. He's a puck battle winner in the corners as well. So if there's a bit of an audition going on for him, great. He might have a bottom six in the waiver wire for him. And for many members of the competition that he's going to have, like a Parker Ford is on that fourth line as well.
Yeah, those are the lines for tonight. Looking forward to seeing Brad, Lambert, Connor as well, and I were talking at the start of the show. Okay, this is a chance for him to prove what he could do. We're not seeing, some of the young guys who weren't cut yesterday. They did announce they made a bunch of changes to the roster. Colby Barlow still around, not in tonight. Braden Yeager not around. Nikita Chibrikov not around. Do you think we'll see some of these guys on Friday? And do any of them? I mean, what do you think the fourth line or the remaining? Like, not really too many forward spots available for them as camp goes on. Yeah,
you know what? I don't think that even Brad Lambert is in tough, right? There are a lot of NHL veterans ahead of him, and if they're not going to be able to find top 6 minutes for him, if they really do want to use that Nemesnikov, Ehlers, Perfetti line like last year, well then, despite his quality as a prospect, he might be on the outside looking in, waiting for an opportunity, at least to start. And then certainly he's likely to run with it when he does get it. So if you're going further down the lineup, it gets way harder. And, a Nikita Chibrikov, unlikely to make the team. And I think that he's got a lot to be excited about. Colby Barlow as well, another top prospect in the future. He's not dominating at this level yet, and it makes sense he'll end up in junior. But there are a lot of players of interest on the prospect pipeline. I think Scott Arniel has said a lot of the veterans want to play 3 out of the next 4 games, and that might make Friday's game in Minnesota an opportunity for a lot of those younger folks to get into one more game. Maybe they can do something special, or maybe it's just a building block for their next go around. And that might be where the Barlows and Jaegers and otherwise get into their next and probably last preseason game. Maybe Arniel decides he wants to go all vets all the way through from here on out as well, which is also an option for him.
Yes, Friday in Minnesota, young lineup, Murat, gives me flashbacks to Paul Maurice. And when it's going to be 9 years from the date, September 27, 2015, where he said it was an honor to be in the building with them tonight after the Jets iced a young lineup, and Minnesota came wave after wave at them. So we'll see what happens. I had to pull that one up. Every preseason, I do enjoy that Paul Maurice quote.
The man is good with his words. I forgot that was Minnesota, but I do remember it. And I know that he was on Andy Strickland's show the other day saying that, hey, you know what? I meant it. I want Winnipeg to win the cup. That would be good for hockey. And I mean, few people are as eloquent with the microphone in their, in front of them as Paul Maurice is. Miss that sometimes, but I think also folks are happy to see that he's had success in a different market.
Yeah, it was 8-1 Minnesota that game, September 27, 2015, and it'll be September 27, 2024 on Friday. So we'll see what happens. I do enjoy bringing up that quote every preseason. But thanks, Murat, for coming on. Looking forward to your latest in The Athletic, and we'll talk to you again next week. Follow him on X, formerly known as Twitter, WPG, Murat. Thanks again.
Thank you. It was an honor to be in the call with you today, sir.
There you go. No, the honor was ours, having you on every week, hearing your thoughts on the Jets. Thank you so much. And we got a great conversation. Hustler recorded it last week at Hockey for All Center with Winnipeg Blues coach Josh Gratton. Hang around for that. But first, here's Hustler with a couple messages.
First up, though, a big cheers to our friends over at Little Brown Jug.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones. The ones who work hard and show up for others, not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
All right. Hey, I got to shout out our pals over at Royal Sports who are ready for hockey season. Listen, Royal is the hockey superstore in town, and no matter the age or the level of the hockey player in your family, you can knock off the entire list with one stop at Royal Sports. Everything from goalie equipment, protective equipment, a massive stick selection, helmets, all the way to stick tape and skate sharpening. Royal Sports has been the hockey superstore in town for over 40 years at 750 Pembina Highway. And while you're there getting ready to drop the puck, check out their incredible section of Winnipeg Jets and NHL merchandise, Bomber gear for the push to the playoffs, and of course, all the new NFL merchandise coming in right now as the 4-down game is well underway. Royal Sports, Winnipeg's hockey and sports superstore, family-owned for over 40 years, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And hey, nice to have a little doubleheader at Boston Pizza last night for Monday Night Football. We've got another doubleheader coming up on Monday, but whether it's Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, or a full day of Sundays, Boston Pizza is your NFL headquarters. Pop in for the game and get your chance to win an exclusive trip to Vegas for Super Bowl weekend, along with NFL jerseys, NFL and Boston Pizza swag, and much, much more. And hey, if you are staying at home, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. And listen, Jets back in action on Wednesday for preseason action. Their final preseason game will be on the 2nd of October. And as I mentioned to you before, we are very close to launching the WST ticket pack and ticket opportunities for this year. We're going to add some flexibility in it. We're going to have a game of the month. We're going to get the crew together 6 times this year. And it looks like that first game is going to be the 20th of October against you-know-who and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So stay tuned. By the end of this week or early next week, we'll roll it out. You'll have the opportunity to go on the link to reserve your seats and join us for some more great times with the Winnipeg Sports Talk crew at Canada Life Center watching the Winnipeg Jets.
There's us again, Montreal, on his way, President's Cup. He'll be back, I don't know, appearing some ways later this week. But this is a conversation you'll hear more of Hustler talking with Josh Gratton. He's the new coach of the Winnipeg Blues of the MJHL. He played 17 years of pro hockey. He was with the Flyers, the Coyotes. He won 2 Calder Cups in the AHL, and he's now the Blues coach. Their home opener tonight, 7:30 at Hockey for All Center against the Winnipeg Freeze. Tickets available at the door. They started their season last weekend, going 0-2 against Selkirk, and we hope to connect with Josh throughout the year and keep up with the latest on the Blues. But they recorded this last week, so they do talk about the home opener next week, and they say, their first game was that night. But some great conversation about Josh's career and the Blues this season. So here's Hustler with Josh Gratton, head coach of the Winnipeg Blues.
All right, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome, relatively new to Winnipeg, but longtime professional, former NHLer, and now coach and GM of the Winnipeg Blues, Josh Gratton. Josh, what is up? It's great to meet you and see you in person.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's an exciting time of year, so I appreciate you having me on.
Well, listen, a big buzz around the Hockey for All Center, obviously, with the beginning of hockey season, the Winnipeg Jets on the ice, but MJ is getting going as well, and for your team, we'll talk a little bit about the Blues and look forward to the season in a minute, but tell us a little bit about how you ended up here in Winnipeg and the opportunity to come here to a hockey city and get involved with an organization that's been such a big part of the MJ for so long.
Yeah, it happened late in the summer. It was kind of just fell on my lap, an opportunity. I put my resume in and had some good conversations and felt like it was the right opportunity to come in here and get back into Canada and coach in the Tier 2 level. So it's again, it's an exciting time. Everybody loves the start of training camp, and you can feel the buzz around the town, not just with the Jets, but with the juniors as well.
I have to ask you, I mean, this is, we could probably do one of those 2-hour podcasts about all the places that this game has taken you, but probably not the most famous former NHLer from Brantford, Ontario. There's a certain guy that wore 99 we all remember, but you obviously played in the OHL and then kind of grinded your way through the minors. Tell us about that quest to finally get to the National Hockey League and then make it.
Yeah, it was a long road for sure. A lot of hard work and bumps and bruises along the way, being good teammates. But never drafted the OHL, never drafted the NHL. I always had to go the back door in, and I learned a lot that way. And hard work pays off, and determination, and with the right people behind you, and being a good teammate, you can make a long career for it as long as you're willing to do it.
Well, speaking of being a good teammate, I think the PIMs speak for themselves that you were more than happy to stand up for a teammate or two. But earlier in your career, won a Calder Cup with the Philadelphia Phantoms, and those Philly teams were notoriously tough, shall we say. Tell us about moving in as a pro and then being part of a championship team in the American League.
Yeah, that was a great experience. It was a lockout season, actually, so we had a lot of the NHL guys, regulars down there, Patrick Sharp, Jeff Carter, Dennis Seidenberg, Mike Richards. You can name a few, go on. I think 17 guys ended up having careers in the NHL from that team, so it was a great experience.
It was the lockout year too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, that year, I remember here, Manitoba had a hell of a team, and they beat that Rochester team, ended up losing in the playoffs, but the level of talent, often many of the young players that would have been in the NHL were playing in the A, and it says a lot about that team that you were on. You were able to win, and arguably the best year ever for the American League because of the strike.
Yeah, absolutely. The talent level and the compete level, it was bar none the best it's ever been down in the American League. But again, that I was fortunate for that experience. We had Craig Berube as an assistant coach, John Stevens head coach, and Kent Hitchcock was around quite a bit because of the lockout. So the young guys gained a lot of experience and knowledge from those guys, which carried on throughout my whole career. And learning how to be a pro a first year under all those guys is very fortunate. And I don't think, in hindsight, looking back, how fortunate I was. I didn't really realize it at the time.
Well, I mean, Josh, it sort of springboard you next year to the National Hockey League in 06-07. You get 52 games with the Phoenix Coyotes. And, I was kind of thinking, 06-07. I looked in. That famous player from your hometown happened to be your head coach. Tell us about that year in Phoenix with the Coyotes playing for Wayne Gretzky as the head coach.
Yeah, Wayne's a great team coach, players coach. We had a lot of older guys, and it was kind of a little bit of a country club in a sense. Unfortunately for the young guys, development-wise, you're playing behind a lot of those older guys, but at the same time, you learn a lot from them. You learn how to be a pro, and fortunate enough to be on the same ice as guys like Jeremy Roenick, Shane Doan, Noah Nolan. Like they're all-stars. They're going to be Hall of Famers. So it was an experience. Being coached by Wayne Gretzky and Barry Smith was great experience. And Wayne's was nothing but great to me. So I have no bad things to say about him for sure.
It is just wild. I mean, the names like you just mentioned, a few of them in Jovanovski and obviously Shane Doan, Coyotes legend, but Jeremy Roenick, and then Cujo was your goaltender. I mean, I kind of had to wrap my head around him still playing. It was such a weird time coming out of the lockout into that. But it was, what was it like being a Coyote? I mean, you were probably so geeked just to be a regular NHLer and to be there and obviously flying around with, a lot of NHL legends. Obviously, the Phoenix thing just never really worked. But for a young guy trying to cut your teeth in the NHL, I'm sure it was one of the best years of your life.
Yeah, it was a great city. And it was great fans for us. They didn't pack the barn, but the fans that did come, they were great, and they were loyal to the team. And again, all those older guys, being on the plane and road trips with them, you learn and you hear great stories from the past. So it's an experience that I'm very fortunate to have had in my life. And again, I don't take anything for granted, and I always look back. I tell stories about these guys, and I'm very fortunate that I was their teammate.
You had some great success with the Wolves and Manchester again later on as a champion in the American Hockey League. But I do have to ask you about going overseas. I mean, I've been friends with a bunch of guys that have gone to the KHL, and I mean, it's a different world. Was it a big culture shock going over there? And how do you enjoy both the hockey and life as a North American in Russia?
Yeah, it was a wild experience. The hockey, it was really good. Top end talent, it's fast and competes with all the top end level over here. The lifestyle was a little different. It took a lot to get used to, but we had some good imports, and you get used to it over there. I was over there, ended up being over there 5 years. It was played in Kazakhstan with two local guys, Nigel Dawson and Dustin Boyd, and still good buddies with those guys to this day. So the experience to going over to Russia, besides all the wild stories that I could go on and on about, but it's the hockey experience, life experience. It was something that I'll cherish for a long time. I met a lot of good people through overseas, and a lot of hockey people that I'm still in contact with to this day.
Dawsey's like royalty in Kazakhstan, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the mayor there, or the king, whatever. But and Dustin Boyd, he's actually helping be assistant coach here with us with the Blues. So Nigel's going to help out a little bit as well. So it's good connections that we made throughout the hockey. Now they're giving back and paying it forward towards their local junior teams here. It's nice to see.
Hey, just before we kind of dive into a little bit more about what's coming up this year with the Blues and your challenge with the organization, I just want to ask you about Russia. Training camp is here, of course, right now. And, we see in the NHL and the NHLPA right now, everything is detailed. You can do this. You can only practice for this long. You have to have this many days off. I imagine it was quite different in Russia. Like, what do you remember going to training camp? How long were you guys on the ice? I mean, how different is that KHL grind as opposed to what's mandated in the CBA and the NHL?
Yeah, you're there about six weeks before the season starts. You get there, you're more or less doing 3 or 4 workouts a day. It's you wake up in the morning, you go for about 45-minute run, then you go eat breakfast, get on the ice, then after the ice workout. go for a couple hour nap and do it all over again in the evening. So it's pretty wild. It's me and the boys used to say that's where you make your paycheck. After the games are easy compared to those training camps for sure. But
so you're bringing what you learned from the KHL to the MJ and putting the Blues through 2 days like that. How are things going with the new team?
Yeah, sometimes so we put them through the ringer, me and Dustin and our other assistant coach Kent McGinnis. But the boys have responded really well. They work hard, and we do a little bit with the Russian training for sure, and kind of give them that experience at the same time. But we're integrating them slowly here. All the new guys coming with the Blues here. It's an exciting time of year, and they're excited, and we have a good coaching staff, and they're going to learn a lot and develop. Is the main purpose for those guys.
You guys have a great setup, don't you? I mean, both the Blues and the Freeze, separate team, but under that same ownership group. Very important part of the Manitoba Junior Hockey League here at this Hockey for All Center. I mean, we've been here for the last couple of days, and obviously the big show is the NHL right now. But I mean, for you as the coach and GM, having a headquarters like this must be just a great way to start off a season and really be able to devote everything you can to make this team competitive and on the way up.
Yeah, it's a great facility, and it's good for the rebuild of the Winnipeg Blues, and seeing all the pros around and the coaches and watching them practice. These kids don't realize how fortunate enough they are to have that right in their back door and learn from the pros, and even just being in the same building as them on a day-to-day basis. The American League team will practice here on a regular basis, from my understanding, and I tell the guys to come get here a little early and watch practice, watch them zip it around, and just see the intensity that they bring every night. So, like I said, the kids are soaking it all in, and they're sponges at this point with the coaching staff we have and everything, all the facilities and resources they have at their disposal. They're definitely taking advantage of it, and very fortunate the Hockey for All Center and the staff here and all the staff higher ups with the Winnipeg Blues, how well these boys are getting treated. It's very professional.
Josh Gratton is our guest now in Winnipeg as the head coach and general manager of the Winnipeg Blues. The coaching, I think, is somewhat self-explanatory. You go out there, you try to win every hockey game, you're trying to develop young players. What about the GM job? I mean, you came in here somewhat late. I mean, how has that gone right now? And what are the challenges coming into a new situation and building a team?
Yeah, well, I walked into a situation where it was pretty turnkey in a sense. There was a few returning players. The previous GM and the owners, they did a great job integrating me into the systems here and what their expectations are. And the admin stuff was a bit new for me in that sense, but again, they integrated me into doing all that. The recruiting wasn't too hard. We had a lot of people. Winnipeg has a good organization and good reputation for getting players, so that wasn't overly difficult. But it's all a learning curve. I've got a lot to learn to get to the next level. But again, having a good support staff and a good ownership group to help you integrate into it made things a lot easier for sure.
It seems we've done stuff with the MJ in the past. Great opportunity to, especially for kids that are in Winnipeg that want to be somewhat closer to home, to play at a high level. And we've seen many MJ players, earn scholarships to the NCAA. And I imagine that would be a goal for many of the players on your roster right now, or kids coming into the MJ to play in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, hoping to take that next step, not necessarily to major junior.
Right, yeah, this is definitely a development league. And the young guys will go to the WHL. Every team has a couple of the kids that are drafted or already signed in the WHL. But for the main focus for the older guys that are 18, 19, 20, they're looking to get the D1 scholarship. The league has done a great job promoting players and pushing players up to either the North American Hockey League. That would be the next step, would be NCAA, or commits right out of this league. I think there's probably 15 commits for next season already out of the MJHL. So it's definitely a development league, and it's well recognized, and the kids are very fortunate. We have 6 American kids that come in here to play for the Blues, and they're all aspirations.
Where are they from?
We got a couple from Minnesota, one from Chicago, one from Florida actually, and Yeah, more or less all over the states. But their main purpose will be to get a D1 scholarship, and I think with our group here, we have a lot of potential opportunities for these kids to get to that next level.
I guess for the coach, the main concern is winning some hockey games, getting going and doing well. I mean, how are you feeling just about this season that you were basically just getting into right now?
Yeah, so we start tonight. It was a good preseason. We learned a lot. We're young. It's more of a rebuild, but we're not making any excuses. We're expecting to be a playoff team and coming in and turn some heads and be a good systematic team. And at the end of the day, these kids all are hungry, want to learn. They came in with a little chip on their shoulder as they had a tough season last season. They're trying to make a name for themselves. So it's a culture rebuild here in the sense of trying to become a winning organization, respected organization, and get into that playoff spot.
I imagine, just from your playing career, I mean, you played on some championship teams, you probably played on some really bad teams, and you know the difference and what makes a team come together. Obviously, you have to have talent. I mean, that goes without saying. But you're going to kind of lean on some of those experiences that hopefully you can pass on to these young men to show them on a day-to-day basis what needs to be done for them to personally take that next step, but most importantly, have some success as the Winnipeg Blues team.
Yeah, and that's what we preach from day one at training camp for these kids that came in, that we're training the culture and coming to work every day and being good teammates and sticking up for each other. We go one, we go all type of mentality, which they're embracing and they're excited about. And all you can ask for is them coming in every day, ready to work, ready to learn, and us as a coaching staff working with them day to day, hands on, and helping their development is the biggest thing and most important thing.
Well, and listen, whether you were watching Winnipeg Sports Talk in the city or out in Steinbach, in Verdun, in Neepawa, Winkler, you name it, MJHLhockey.ca cannot say enough about the level of play and just how fun it is going to these games, especially in a lot of those other towns. You guys want to get the Blues back to where they have been in the past, and I mean, you've got an incredible facility here. Fill people in where they can get more information on the Blues and then come out and see you and your squad play.
Yeah, home openers next Wednesday. We're in Selkirk tonight. You just check the Winnipeg Blues Instagram or the Winnipeg Blues website. And any questions, you can email me at jgratton@50below.ca. I would love to get as many butts in the seats this week for that home opener. Help these kids get that true junior experience and get ready to kick off this season on a positive note.
Well, hey, Coach, good luck tonight. Welcome to the Peg. Great to see you and great to have you on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We'll stay in touch throughout the year, but have a great weekend, and obviously good luck in the home opener next week for the Winnipeg Blues.
Appreciate it, fellas. You guys have a great one.
There's Hustler, Winnipeg Blues head coach Josh Gratton. Caught up with him at the Hockey for All Center last week. That was from last week. It is tonight, the Blues home opener against the Freeze. And great talking with Josh. A lot of hockey experience going through his hockey DB. Coyotes, Flyers, 2 Calder Cups in the AHL. I just pulled up his hockeyfights.com and top-rated one against some heavyweights in here. Brian McGrattan, Joel Recklish, Colton Orr, Matt Cassian, who's with EST now, Edmonton Sports Talk, David Kochi, Andrew Peters, Todd Fedorak. That guy's, it was a great talk with him, and we hope to connect with Josh throughout the season. One guy who I haven't connected with since the beginning of the show, Connor Hrabchak. Connor, welcome back. What's going on?
Been here the whole time. Feeling good. I enjoyed those conversations that you were at. You're killing it in the host chair, as usual.
There's only one hustler. I can only bring my own game and, play my own ball here. So we're having fun. Great time with Murat, Darrin, Scott. We are winding down the show. Got to go through the Coolbet lines, Connor. And we were just looking while that was playing. They do have NHL futures. I wanted to hit you with some predictions, and we'll see if there's some Jets involved. How about Norris Trophy? Cale Makar, favorite, plus 275. Quinn Hughes, plus 600. Adam Fox, 700. Evan Bouchard, 700. Heiskanen, Yossi, Dobson, all down the list between 1,000 and 1,500. Hedman, 2,000. How about Josh Morrissey, plus 2,500 for the Norris? Any thoughts on these Norris odds?
Yeah, I do like Evan Bouchard, and it's the line of thinking that the Oilers are going to be one of the best teams in the league again, and maybe the best team. They're favored to win. Talked about that with Scott Cullen earlier, and maybe they win the President's Trophy. Maybe they're the top team in the league. And Evan Bouchard, he's going to put up a ton of points, both at 5-on-5, but mainly on that Oilers power play. And sometimes Norris Trophy voting just comes down to which defenseman has the most points. And Evan Bouchard could easily finish because of how electrifying the Oilers power play is. He could easily finish with the most points. So I don't hate that at 7-1. Again, I don't think taking a player like Hedman, who's not maybe going to put up a ton of points as a longer shot, would be the best interest. I think a player like Dobson, who could lead the league for defenseman points or something like that. If you're going to take a longer shot, take an offensive guy who might just break out and have a crazy year. But I do like Evan Bouchard as, I guess, not the favorite. I do still think Cale Makar is the best defenseman in the league, but just a little bit further down the board.
Yeah, sometimes all you need is an injury or something, an off year. Evan Bouchard, on that power play, we saw what he did in the playoffs. Going to have, if it's possible, a bigger role with them for the entire season this year. We'll scroll down. NHL Awards, Vezina Trophy. You think Connor Hrabchak can repeat as Vezina winner plus 700, tied with Jeremy Swayman, who doesn't even have a contract right now, and Igor Shesterkin working on another one. Sorokin plus 1,000, Demko plus 1,000, but he's working through some injury issues. Jake Ottinger plus 1,000. There's Jacob Markstrom, who Scott Cullen mentioned, now on New Jersey. Vasilevsky and Saros, some veterans, Bobrovsky as well. Can Hrabchak repeat as the Vezina winner?
I think so. And I think one thing benefiting him is just looking at those odds, how open it is. Like, he's tied for a guy with the shortest odds who, like you said, doesn't even have a contract. Igor Shesterkin had his ups and downs last year. And while he's one of the best goalies in the league, Connor Hrabchak proved last year he had a great defensive system in front of him, but he also saved by far the most goals above expected. And led goaltending in a lot of statistical categories. So yeah, the market's pretty wide open for him to do it again. I don't hate UC Saros. I didn't love Nashville, like just spending money, like their kid, like a kid having a credit card at a candy shop or something. But UC Saros is an elite goaltender. And if Nashville makes the leap and is one of the top 3 teams in the Central, he might be the catalyst for it and might be one of the best goalies in the league statistically, which might give him good odds as a long shot there. But yeah, Hrabchak plus 700, tied 3 ways for the top. I think market's wide open for him to do it again.
Yeah, for a big guy who won, plus 700 seems not bad. He's going to play a lot too.
Yeah.
Another question, will we have playoff hockey here in the spring? And they did have odds on will they to make the playoffs. And here, let's scroll down. Winnipeg Jets, yes, minus 200. So the odds say Jets big favorite. I don't think there's much value on. I almost thought that was, we talked with Scott about how tough the Central is now with Dallas, Colorado, is Minnesota coming on. So Nashville, as you said, so minus 200 to make the playoffs. Still pretty high on the Jets. The roster is very similar, but you have to feel good about seeing that minus 200 number, I guess.
Yeah. And, every year we were talking about this before we hopped on here, but like Dom L at The Athletic, he does his projection models. Jay Fresh has his projection models. They usually love the Jets. And if you look at the betting market, they love the Jets minus 200. Like I don't know. Are we down on the Jets because we're in the market and we're like pessimistic about? I don't know. But minus 200 does seem a little heavy for the offseason, players that left. Brendan Dillon, I think, is a massive loss. Sean Monahan, Tyler Toffoli, they weren't here the whole year, and the Jets were a playoff team before they got here. But I still think minus 200 with an improved Central might be a little steep. So there's not much value there, but it's interesting to see where the market is at on the Jets in comparison to some of the analytical models out there and what we discuss on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I'll go through one more of these as we wind down. Look at Kyle Connor, total goals in the regular season, over under 35.5, minus 112 either way.
Over. I'll explain why. He had 34 goals last year in 65 games he played, because he missed part of the season with an MCL sprain, led the NHL in goals before he had the MCL sprain, and missed 5 weeks of play, and then came back and didn't really look like himself, didn't have the same explosiveness for a few weeks, and then kind of ramped up into the playoffs where he scored a few goals. But 34 goals last year and he missed 5 weeks of the season. I think if he comes out this season and looks anything like he did to start last year, that first month and a bit where he led the league in goals ahead of Austin Matthews, 35.5, well within the realm of possibilities to go over for Kyle Connor.
All right, I'm checking at Scott Cullen's projections. We had him on before on his Google sheet. He's got Kyle Connor 37 goals in 81 games, but certainly on quite the pace last year before getting hurt. Connor, it's after 3, time to wind down the show here. So I don't know, talked about tonight's Jets game against Edmonton. Final thoughts as we wind it down here. Just hoping for a win. I mean, they don't have a win in the preseason yet. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to go well when it comes to regular season if you're not winning the preseason.
I mean, as funny as it is to say, like, they got to win a preseason game, because they don't. Losing tonight would be pretty weird. So it'll be interesting to see what the final score is. I'm, again, like I said off the top, interested in the goaltending. Kakinen, Brad Lambert, and Nikolai Ehlers playing together. A lot of storylines heading into tonight. I'm glad that they're dressing a good lineup here at home.
Yeah, give the home fans something to cheer about. Looking forward to making it out to Canada Life Center after the game. I don't know, Connor, if you've got an eye on this Vince McMahon documentary that just came out. My whole timeline is on that. It's on Netflix. I'll have to watch it and give my review. Dude, it seems like we're in the golden age here of sports documentaries. Over the summer, I don't know if you watched Receiver on Netflix. There was Sprint on Netflix. Amazon Prime has this college one about NIL, the Money Game, which I watched. Game 1 followed Jaden Daniels, Angel Reese in there, Livy Dunn, exciting. And we do have this NHL documentary on Amazon Prime. I don't know if you're hyped for that.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, actually, I don't know if you saw yesterday, Amazon Prime announced the Coast to Coast coverage. That's every Thursday night. Are you pumped for that? I'm pumped for that. Although it's Thursday nights, it's like Thursday Night Football. But anyway, still pumped.
Yeah, I think the Amazon, well, first of all, PSA, 4 Jets games this year will be on Amazon Prime, no longer Sportsnet Monday Night Hockey. It is Amazon Prime. So I think there's going to be an adjustment, which I don't, and you have to buy an additional subscription. I don't know if that's great for the consumer, but I do enjoy the idea. We don't have NHL on the fly here. You can't get NHL Network in Canada. So this Thursday night, what do they call it? Coast to coast, not ice surfing?
Not ice surfing.
It's coast to coast. So I'll tune into that. Thursday night is a huge night for hockey. Always a ton of games. So I think that is good. So I will be tuned in for that, and I'll be tuned in tonight. Jets, Oilers, and I guess getting ready for my fantasy football lineups on the weekend. But Connor, thanks so much for coming on. Great talking with you. We'll see what happens tonight, and we'll connect again on Friday.
Yeah, looking forward to Friday's show. Thanks for having me on. You killed it. Killing it in the host chair. Did
okay. I can hold my own for a couple days until Hustler comes back. We hope to have him on the show tomorrow at some point from Montreal at the President's Cup. Anyways, thank you to all of our guests who hopped on. Scott Cullen, Darrin Bauming, Murat Atesh, Connor, of course. And hold on, am I missing one more? Scott, Darrin, Murat. Oh yeah, Josh Gratton, who sat down with Hustler last week. That was great connecting with him. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Let's Rolly's Transfer, Consolidated Supply, Manitoba Battery, Princess Auto, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Little Brown Jug, Rural Sports, Boston Pizza, Winnipeg Jets. Watch out for the ticket pack coming soon. Coolbet, had a great time at the poker tournament last night. There will be another one in October. I think October 29. Get set for that. And of course, Garage Living Winnipeg sponsors CFL 110. If you want more CFL conversation, check that out on our podcast on YouTube. All links in the description of this video. If you've made it to the end, please hit the thumbs up. hit the subscribe button. We're closing in. We're trying to get to 12K subscribers. We're at 11.83 right now. You know, anytime you hit the thumbs up, tells YouTube, hey, you're putting out some good content. Maybe we'll recommend it to more people. The YouTube algorithm is how we do get a lot of additional views. Anyways, thanks everyone for coming out, chatting with the show. I appreciate all your engagement. I'll send it over to Edmonton Sports Talk, where they're counting down to tonight's Jets-Oilers game in the preseason as well. So thanks again, everyone. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.